Hello and welcome to episode 121 of Driver Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. I literally recorded the last two episodes back to back, this one and the last one, because I've got some work going on at the house. It's going to be kind of distracting, so I don't think I'll be able to get much done by the time that you hear this. So I decided to get the wrestling stuff out of the way this week. I hope normal operations will go back next week, but it's impossible to predict at this point. Anyway, we have a lot of wrestling news to cover. We're going to start with AEW for the first segment. Now, when we last left AEW on this show, I'd been praising them because they had just stood up to the Oklahoma State Athletic Commission in support of Nyla Rose. They were praised for that, and justifiably so. Since then, AEW and Tony Khan have taken a nosedive. And we're going to start with the week before the NFL draft, which is crucial to the point of the story, so keep it in the back of your mind. Now, at a pay-per-view called AEW Dynasty on April 21st, for reasons that escape me, AEW brought back Jack Perry. Now, if you recall, in June of last year, Perry's mouth cost AEW CM Punk, and this is where all the ratings and downhill slides began. Well, apparently all is well between Perry and Tony Khan, because on the following Wednesday, April 24th, on Dynamite, in the main event slot, Perry came out and asked Tony Khan to reinstate him, which Tony Khan agreed to. Perry then attacked Khan, followed by the Young Bucks also attacking Tony Khan, giving him what they call the Tony Khan driver, used to be called the Meltzer driver, and leaving him in a pile in the ring with a bunch of baby faces and his father Shad Khan running in to check him and see if he's okay. Well, since Khan is an executive for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he was at the NFL draft wearing a quote-unquote neck brace. It's such a fake-looking neck brace. It looks like what Vince McMahon was wearing during the steroid trial. Now, this received various media coverages. Pat McAfee, who, in addition to being a commentator, has had a WWE match at WrestleMania and was in the Royal Rumble this year, had no sympathy for Khan, and him and his colleagues were openly mocking Tony Khan, as well they should. However, the NFL Network commentators were somewhat sympathetic to Khan, given that he was quote-unquote selling the injury. Yeah, he was selling the injury like you tell a 4-year-old to play dead. That's how he was selling the injury. But he gets interviewed by the NFL Network. Now, Tony Khan is completely unself-aware, but this is so much worse than anything I've ever seen. I don't know how you could possibly be this unself-aware, because he literally had this to say. This is an exact quote. "If you can't handle cringe, you might want to skip ahead. Brace yourselves." This is Tony Khan speaking. Quote, "We are the most successful sports startup since the AFL pre-merger. There has not been a challenger brand that has gained as much market share as AEW in many, many, many years." I think the ABA might want to take you up on that, Tony. Anyway, back to the quote. "We are like the Pepsi of pro wrestling, and we're up against a really evil juggernaut. WWE is our competitor. That's who we're facing. You might want to skip ahead if you can't handle cringe." Quote, "AEW is like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. WWE is like the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling." Just take a moment. I'm going to need one. Okay. Obviously, this did not go unnoticed, not by anybody in the NFL, and certainly not on wrestling social media. Hell, wrestling social media, the non-AEW fans had a field day. An absolute field day with that comment. It didn't help matters that this literally happened the same day it was announced that Vince McMahon was sharing the last of his shares of TKO. Hell, he's not even keeping a single symbolic share, but more on him in the next segment. Now, while the internet was laughing at him like the joke that he is, I swear to you, he honestly thought what he said was somehow a positive. He really thinks that all this attention is somehow good for AEW. He believes it's beneficial somehow. He is completely out of touch with reality because, in reality, AEW has been a sinking ship for years, but in the last, I don't know, year and a half, it's been more than ever. Tony Khan has the most to lose from AEW failing of anybody on the face of this planet. And he, honestly, is just doubling down and spiraling. You need to remember, the AEW TV deal is up for renewal. It's also come out that AEW has lost some of their international broadcasting partners. And you add in that tickets aren't selling and TV ratings are constantly lower than they were the week before. And it's looking more and more like AEW will be leaving Warner Bros. Discovery in the foreseeable future. Hell, in the very near future. Tony Khan made the one mistake that he should have never made. He made the one mistake and did the one thing that he could have done for himself. He became an on-air character. Now, say what you want to about on-air authority figures. Guys like McMahon, Jim Cornette, Eric Bischoff, they're captivating personalities and they're gold on air. You know, Vince McMahon is a piece of shit, but you can't argue that he could be very captivating in his day. Jim Cornette, don't need to say anything more about that. Eric Bischoff, don't need to say anything more than that. But he comes across as like awkward and bland. If you didn't know that he was the owner of AEW and you had no idea who he was, you'd be looking at him going, why is he on this television show? Why is he an authority figure? Why is he on this television show to begin with? But Tony Khan is sort of the problem with wrestling fans who decide to become involved in the wrestling industry without any real experience. They see things and want to do them, but they don't understand. They know what they want to do, but they don't understand how to do it or how to do what needs to be done or why it needs to be done, what they do. I mean, he's trying to mimic the NWO, the Eric Bischoff, the Vince Stone Cold feud, and these were clearly his inspirations, but he saw the outcome, but he didn't see the buildup. See, it wasn't just Vince just one day decided that he just wanted to start a feud with Stone Cold. Stone Cold was the Stone Cold character. Vince was saying, look, I'm the owner of this company. I don't think Stone Cold Steve Austin could be a champion that's a good visual for WWE, and here's why. But the fans were against him, and it had months of build-up, and then once it really got going, it worked. Same thing with NWO and Eric Bischoff. There were clear reasons for everything they did. There were clear motivations for everything they did. Everything was explained, and there was logic involved. Tony Khan just wants results. He doesn't understand the build-up. So when push comes to shove and day turns to night, it makes no sense. Things just happen for no reason, and it's just messed up. Now, going back to the Young Bucks, who are one of the catalysts for whole things, they're the real-life EVPs, or executive vice presidents for AEW. Tony Khan has put more faith in those two than anyone ever should have. The Bucks have never been about anyone but themselves and their friends. That's been a known issue in wrestling for years. This is not just me saying it. There's plenty of other people saying it too. So it's been proven time and time again. Now, why exactly Tony Khan didn't fire the Young Bucks for putting him in a neck brace is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, because apparently the Young Bucks' explanation for why they weren't fired for their actions was because of what they called ironclad contracts. Now, that's bullshit for a myriad of reasons I'm not even going to get to here. But the way they mentioned this was the day after Tony Khan's little interview on the NFL Network, the AEW Dynamite after his interview on the NFL draft. He started Dynamite in a obviously fake office, claiming he was in Jacksonville and producing the show from his office. But the Young Bucks overrode the signal and took over the broadcast while sitting in the TV truck. Now, for those of you who don't understand the stupidity of this, allow me to explain. If you're sitting in the TV truck on site and there is a signal coming in from elsewhere, you don't need to override the signal. You literally have the capacity to hit a couple of buttons and shut the signal down. So why they felt the need to override the signal from the source of the signal is a question best left to the best wrestling brains the world has to offer, because my brain can't comprehend it. But they promised that Kenny Omega would be coming back to confront the Young Bucks, and it was just about as predictable as you'd think it would be. Kenny Omega, who had been suffering from diverticulitis, comes in, I'll give him credit for this. He's not a very good promo most of the time, but this was a good promo. It was a good promo. The outcome was as predictable as you can imagine. He got beat down and thrown into put on a stretcher and then thrown off the stretcher, okay? It's just... And this eventually led to, at the time of recording, an announcement for a no DQ 4-on-4 match called Anarchy in the Arena at the next pay-per-view, though nothing at the time of recording has been announced in terms of stakes. So we don't know what stakes are on the line or not. Now that's just the Elite. The rest of AEW, not exactly doing well. The AEW World Champion, Swerve Strickland, is being buried constantly. The Women's Champion, Toni Storm, is damn near unbearable. Willow Nightingale and Adam Copeland as TNT and TBS championships they feel irrelevant. The tag team champions are so unimportant. As I was writing this, I couldn't figure out who they were. I had to go look it up and realize, oh yeah, it was the Young Bucks. The only championship in AEW that actually has some form of relevancy is the FTW championship, which isn't a real championship. And plus, it's also relevant because Chris, I've been abducted by aliens, Jericho, currently holds it. Outside of the championships, AEW doesn't have any stars at all. There are no captivating storylines. And as a result, their average viewership is down week after week. During every episode, they lose hundreds of thousands of viewers per episode, which is almost on par with the January 4th, 1999 episode of WCW Monday Nitro. And that's not a good comparison. They have no momentum, they're ice cold, and with all of this nonsense, their timing could not possibly have been worse given the TV deal situation in the US. And I've said this before. I'm going to ask this question again. How much longer can AEW last given everything that's been going on? What else has to happen for Tony Khan to see the light or for Shad Khan to see the light? The Warner Brothers Discovery TV deal is going away very soon. The loss of a TV deal is what killed WCW in March of 2001. It's why TNA Impact is a footnote in wrestling history at this point, both of which could have continued as they were, but without good TV deals, they had no value. WCW was purchased by WWE in March of 2001 for $3 million, which is about $5.3 million today. Impact Wrestling is, again, a joke. Or TNA Wrestling, either or. TNA or Impact, it doesn't really matter at this point. The bottom line here is this. The death clock is ticking for AEW. The time is coming for something to break. Something has to give in the next few months. I think that they're going to lose the TV deal, though they may get another one. I don't know. But in terms of losing the TV deal, that's probably where everything's going to break, because I don't think there's very many other networks clamoring for AEW. Now, originally this is where I was going to end things, but as I was working on this, a story broke and I just had to laugh at that. Now, this is the newest of controversies of the Nature Boy's Ric Flair. Now, his list of controversies and real-life feuds, I could talk about that for days. And given his reputation, I'm kind of surprised that AEW signed him. So, our story starts on May 5th with a tweet from Ric Flair's official Twitter account. Quote, I have spent $1,500 at Paisano's Stone-Fired Pizza to be disrespected more than I have in my entire life. After taking 20 pictures with customer and staff, I was asked to leave because of an issue I had with the kitchen manager taking too long in the bathroom. I would highly recommend that anyone who wants to enjoy a relaxing time in Gainesville at a nice restaurant never visit this place. Woo. Now, first off, you go to the Paisano's Stone-Fired Pizza. Unless he's buying like 2 of everything in the kitchen, there is no way he spent $1,500 there. Unless he's talking like over a period of months. Because like even a cheese pizza is only like $15, so it's not a super expensive place. It's not like you're spending $300 a plate. Now, an individual whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce works for a sister location responded. I am the manager of Paisano's sister location off Archer. Mr. Flair was being drunk and disorderly. He wooed directly into a blind grandmother's face. After being confronted, he picked up furniture and swung it menacingly. We love Rick, but he was boogered. Now, not long thereafter, as does happen with these kinds of stories, a video gets released on social media, and it pretty much confirms the story of the manager in question, because it shows an obviously drunk Ric Flair cussing and causing a scene in the restaurant. Again, it confirms the story of the manager in question, doesn't make Rick look good. But this is just the latest in a long line of bad moves and stupid decisions by Ric Flair. You can't argue that in his prime he was one of the best in-ring workers and he was a captivating talker. But he's gotten in his own way so many times over the years, and it stuns me that he never learns. He never learns. Between the divorces, the bankruptcies, failed business ventures, and personal controversies, he's literally in the same boat that Hulk Hogan was in years ago. But unlike Flair, Hogan had the Gawker lawsuit to save him. There's no lifeline available for Flair at this point. He never learns his lesson. Like after his major health scare a few years ago, he was basically told, look, you would be very well advised not to drink again for the rest of your life, because if you do, you might not have that much of a life left, which would be a hint, even to me, give up the booze. Nope, that's not how Ric Flair does things. He never learns his lesson. And sadly, given his age and health problems, he may not have another chance. He may not have another chance to make another mistake. I'm willing to bet that he's used up 8.99 of his 9 lives, and if he can't change for the better, he's probably not going to get another chance. His wrestling career is over. I don't think anybody wants him in the wrestling industry anymore. And he's basically just that guy. I'm sorry. Good worker, legendary talent, but he's self-sabotaged so much that his career is probably done. And with that, I'm going to take my break, and I'll talk about WWE when I come back. welcome back. So, in a bit of fairness, since WWE has some controversies lately, I'll give them some time here too, because I'm not just going to blast AEW for making stupid decisions. But this one isn't even a stupid decision on WWE's part. They released a bunch of in-ring talent over the last few weeks. Now, since TKO took over in 2023, quite a few wrestlers have been released, and a number got let go over the last few weeks. And fans are complaining, well, WWE is making so much money that they don't need to release anybody. Here's the problem with this logic. People don't understand how business works. They're claiming that WWE is making so much revenue that they don't have to release anybody. Well, revenue and profit are not the same thing. So if I go to Target and I spend $20, that $20 is revenue. Now, if the expenses add up to $19.80, then that 20 cents is the profit. It's not just what they're bringing in, but what they're spending that matters. Now, with all of the various new moves and investments and changes that WWE has made over the last year, I think it's fair to say that they've spent a lot of money in making these investments. They have a brand new headquarters in New York City. I guarantee you that real estate is not cheap. But when it comes to the in-ring talent issue, and this is not just WWE, any business, large or small, has to decide if they're spending money on something, is it worth the investment? Let's just do a little analysis here. So apparently the low-end pay for in-ring talent in WWE is $250,000 a year. Now, some of the released talent made more. I think Jinder Mahal made about $900,000 a year. But $250,000 is the minimum per wrestler per year. Now, let me ask you a question. If you're a business owner and you're spending $250,000 on something, I don't care what it is, whether it be a person, whether it be a computer system, whether it be a myriad, anything that you're spending $250,000 on, if you're not getting the value out of it, why waste the funds? I mean, if you're spending $250,000, but you're not getting $250,000 and one penny back, what's the point? And I say this because the overwhelming majority of those who were released during the TKO WWE era, they weren't being used. There were several of them that were so unused, I actually forgot that they were still with WWE. Like one of the most recent releases, Zion Quinn. I swear to you, I forgot he was with WWE. I seriously did. Some of the other talents, Jinder Mahal and his tag team Indashir, I mean, they haven't been seen on TV for quite some time. But sometimes you need jobbers, or you need jobber teams or jobber stables to get the other talents over. But sometimes it just isn't worth it to keep these talents around. I mean, it sucks, but it needs to be done. It's not just about what they're bringing in terms of revenue, it's what they're spending in terms of expenses. And if expenses get too hot, sometimes you just got to say, why waste funds? Which brings me to my next topic, because it is directly related to all of this. Now, over the last couple of years, the original WWE network has been replaced. Now, internationally, it's been more or less taken over by Netflix. I think there might be a few outliers, but in the US, it's currently on Peacock. I say currently because it's becoming clear, based on everything that I'm seeing, that Peacock is on its last legs as a platform. Even with WWE, it's become readily apparent that Peacock has never generated as much revenue as it has expenses. And since 2020, Peacock has lost $7 billion without seeing any kind of profit at all. Really, at this point, the best thing that Peacock has is the WWE, and even they can't save them at this point. How much longer can Comcast keep this platform in place given these numbers? How much more money are they willing to invest in a platform that will never break even, much less make a profit? So what's going to happen? It's simple. WWE's moving to Netflix. Do you honestly think where every other country can have WWE on Netflix and WWE is on Peacock in the States, it's obvious they're going to be moving their content to Netflix sooner rather than later? They're not stupid. Peacock is a spent force. I can't even say, no, it's not a spent force. It was never a force to begin with. Peacock's death clock is ticking. The plug will be pulled at some point. You look at some of the biggest failures in the history of business, like the Arch Deluxe line for McDonald's is considered to be the worst failure in food service history. The GM EV1 was seen as a massive flop, and those two didn't lose anywhere near the money Peacock has. You take both the Arch Deluxe line and the GM EV1, you adjust it for inflation, add them together, they're nowhere close to the money Peacock lost in its first year. I think within the next couple of years, Comcast is going to pull the plug. WWE is going to move everything to Netflix, and Peacock's going to go away. They don't have anything really to justify staying. They lost $2.8 billion last year. How do you keep something going when you're losing that level of money? It's just mind-boggling. Okay, so there's been some discussion about Vince McMahon and his current plans. Well, he's no longer affiliated with WWE in any way. And there's been this discussion about, oh, well, if he's going to start a new wrestling federation. No. No, he won't. Why would he? First off, Vince is pushing 80. He doesn't have the energy I don't think he has the ability or the energy to run a business from scratch. And I say that because he's going to have to rebuild from scratch. He literally has nothing from WWE. No wrestlers, no rings, no television equipment, no transportation equipment. Nothing. I mean, the amount of money you would need to rebuild all of that from scratch is colossal, and even for him. Number two, it would probably take him years to complete, and the cost would be beyond astronomical. But that's actually the easier of the two issues to overcome. Because the other issue, and let's say all this does happen, the other issue is the bigger issue. And the other issue is the talent situation. If you think about it, all of the available top talent is either signed to WWE, AEW, or Impact Wrestling. What you have left is the indie darlings, maybe a few people from the NWA or MLW, or those guys who are retired. So there's really not a talent pool at this point. Number two, with all the accusations and lawsuits that have been thrown McMahon's way over the last few years, it isn't so much a question of who he should sign, but who he could sign. I mean, Vince McMahon was thoroughly hated in the wrestling industry for decades before all of these accusations came out. There's a lot of people in wrestling who justifiably hate Vince McMahon. But with his reputation today, I think there are few, if any, wrestlers who would want to get that kind of stink on their careers because they would never be able to wash it out. And you're probably getting talent that got outed during speaking out, and don't even think about having a women's division. With the way social media and all of this stuff works in this day and age, there is no way Vince could even come close to getting a 3-match card, never mind a full card, of wrestlers. So there's no more chance of Vince being involved in wrestling. He's done in wrestling. And he's going to lose a lot more in the next few years soon because he's going to lose a lot of his money in these lawsuits. He's probably going to trial and or prison. He's gone from WWE and he's gone from wrestling. And wrestling and WWE are better because he's gone. And he's a pariah in wrestling. He deserves to be a pariah in wrestling. And a lot of people are enjoying his downfall because it's been long overdue. And WWE is, again, better without him. This should have happened years ago, but it didn't. And with that, this shorter episode of Driver Seat Blog Radio is done for the week. I'll be back next week, I hope. I'm Dave Farsley. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you then.